Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I wanted to ask you about Chinese and American foreign policy. If you look at both governments' actions in the last decade, it seems that they've frankly are in a race to score the most own goals. They make mistakes, they make missteps, then they also make some tactical, right decisions. Can you look back from the perspective of Beijing and Washington at the last decade? What have been the right moves? What have been the wrong moves they've made?
And the big strength of America is that, and this is a dirty secret, but I don't think it's a real secret, although my friends who live in Washington, D.C. and work there will profoundly disagree with me, that the most important things in America do not happen in Washington, D.C. They happen in American corporations, they have in American universities, in research labs, on Wall Street, on main streets of the 50 states. And often they happen despite Washington, D.C., not because of Washington, D.C. And that is the essential source of American resilience, creativity, and strength. It does mean that you take a long time to come to decisions, but it doesn't mean that you cannot come to decisions, and when you do, you pursue them. And lots of people who mistake the noise for the signal about America have not lived to regret it. So I think, you are both countries like any other. You have your strengths, you have your weaknesses. And for us, we have to deal with both of you.
So, Bilahari, I mean, you said that China viewed the West, and in particular the United States, as in decline, and yet, if they viewed the U.S. in decline, why is it that then China got so, and I'll use the word aggressive? They got aggressive in the South China Sea. They got aggressive with India. They got aggressive in Hong Kong. They got aggressive with Taiwan. Wouldn't it have been better just to follow the, bide your strength and, bide your time and hide your strength?
Yeah, but it's a good question, and I've thought about it a lot, and I've come to a rather simple answer. The simple answer is hubris is not an American monopoly. The Chinese are also prone to hubris, perhaps more so, because they have a very hierarchical kind of system, right? Right? And they drank too much of their own Kool-Aid, and they were impatient. Look, the Chinese Communist Party no longer legitimates itself with reference to class struggle. That history is moving in the direction of the proletariat, so follow me, comrades, because the future is ours, right? Who believes in class struggle in China these days? I think you will probably find more people believing in class struggle in American and European universities than in China. All right? So it legitimates itself by a historical ethno-nationalist narrative of China's humiliation, China's rejuvenation under the leadership of the Communist Party, and eventually achieving the China dream. Now, that is I've told Chinese friends this is not a narrative that a great power should have, because it's a very narrow narrative of limited attraction to anybody who is non-Chinese, and even among Chinese, not everybody would share the same version of the China dream. But it's also a narrative that is highly revanchist and infused with entitlement. I behaved this way in the South China Sea because it was mine after all, and you stole it from me when I was weak. So I'm just reclaiming what is mine. It's not aggression. It's restitution. Ditto for East China Sea, ditto for the Himalayas, ditto everywhere. And there was a certain impatience because the time is now, comrades. It's ours, not because of class struggle, because the West is weak. So therefore, let us reclaim what was rightfully ours. It's a hugely entitled narrative that makes it very difficult to compromise. Look, I don't want to exaggerate the point, but the Chinese Communist Party uses this narrative and also fears it. Because if you say this is mine, then it's a very small step for saying that, oh, these countries, they are too recalcitrant to understand that I'm just taking back what is mine. A small step to criticizing the party for being not sufficiently bold in reclaiming what was stolen from you. So they use it, they fear it, and it's very hard for them to compromise. If I'm just taking back what was mine, why must I compromise? Even if it is not in my interest to be aggressive, even if it is my interest to compromise tactically, it's very difficult. Why should I? My people will criticize me.
Bilahari, you mentioned Trump. I think that was at the 46-minute mark, which may be a record for lack of a mention of Donald Trump in coming up in an election year. So, Mark, if you want to do a quick intro of yourself to Bilahari, and then your question about the U.S.
Bilahari, thanks for being with us. This is Mark from Paradigm Consulting.
What consulting, sorry?
Paradigm Consulting, we're a communications agency. You mentioned at the top that we live in an age of identity politics. I agree, but we see this at work in the US, quite polarized and divided at the moment. I had a question, given that situation at home, as America tries to project outward, what tone do you think our government should be taking at this juncture in its foreign relations as it tries to build links with allies and navigates this geopolitical situation with China? What tone should we be taking in our foreign relations and how we engage with partners, potential partners?
Well, before I answer your question, I want to ask you a question. You don't have to answer it straight away. Anybody can answer it, because I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't have a good answer myself.
I hope I have an answer.
Well, maybe nobody has, right? But I believe that that you can't understand international relations or politics in general without taking a historical perspective. And America is undoubtedly polarized, right? Today, and will remain polarized for the foreseeable future. But is this polarization worse than the polarization we saw in America in the 60s, late 60s and 70s? I lived through some of that polarization as a graduate student in America, and I'm not myself sure. It's different kind of polarization for sure, right? But, is it different? Absolutely different. Because you do go through these cycles, in the United States. But okay, that's my question, kind of background. Well, I think I must put it this way. I put it this way. Mr. Trump was clearly a disruptive force, right? But was he a unique force? I'm not so sure. A penchant towards unilateralism, a fascination with strength, crudely defined, putting America first, being very transactional in dealings with foreign countries. These are not monopolies of Mr. Trump, although he may claim them because he claims every damn thing as his own invention. They are always been lurking in American political culture and American foreign policy culture. Mr. Trump's, one of the most disruptive things he did in this part of the world is to forswear the TPP, almost the day after he came into power. But is it more or less disruptive than Richard Nixon unilaterally taking the dollar off the gold standard in 1971, which he also did unilaterally with no consultation and destroyed the Bretton Woods system overnight? I'm not sure, So I think, what Mr. Trump, and not everything Mr. Trump did was wrong. I think some things he did right, maybe totally by accident, okay? I will grant that, all right? Okay, how he dealt with certain things may be totally accidental, but nonetheless, they were the right things. But where he fell short is thought that you could do everything yourself. Where Mr. Biden's strength is, he takes a much more consultative approach with friends, partners, allies. That's very important. But we should not forget that Mr. Biden is consulting us not for the pleasure of our company because of our scintillating wit or good looks, because he's trying to see what we are willing to do with him to advance American strategic goals. That's important, but it is also a polite transactionalism, shall we say. And he has gone further than any other US president. If you're willing to work with him on the same goals as deeply as he wants, he's willing to give you more tools That's the meaning of AUKUS. The US has not shared nuclear submarine technology with anybody for more than 60 years. It seems on the cusp of sharing it through its allies with Australia. It's a different America, I think, and we have to live with it. It's a different America because after the end of the Cold War, I don't see America facing any existential threat of the kind that the Soviet Union posed. China is a formidable rival, but it is not an existential threat. Russia is a very dangerous adversary, but it's not an existential threat. Russia's long-term trajectory is downwards, accelerated by Mr. Putin, but would have been downwards anyway due to economic and demographic factors. Where else? Where are the existential threats? Since you face no existential threats, you can be more discerning in your interventions around the world, and you will demand more of your allies, your friends, your partners to take up more share of the burden. And that's a common trait since the end of the Cold War. Burden sharing, Mr. Clinton and Obama place quite a lot of emphasis on multilateralism. But multilateralism is a form of burden sharing. Mr. Trump made very crude demands. Banged the table, thumped the table, and shouted, right? Mr. Biden is consultative, which is good. But he's not consulting you for the sheer pleasure of your company, as I said. It's a different America, but there is only one America. And we have to work with it, whether we like it or not. We have to work with it on your terms because you are the most important country in the world. And one thing the Ukraine war has underscored is the importance of America in maintaining regional and international balances. No America, no balance. All right. So I've often been asked in my career, is America reliable? And my answer has always been the same. Of course, it's not reliable. Every 4 years, you change everything, even if it's the same party. Even within the 4 years, sometimes you change the key personnel and you've got to go and explain things to them over and over again. But you are indispensable. So whether you're reliable or not is moot. I think, and this is my final point, we often use the term world order or international order rather loosely. But I think it's a fundamental mistake to think that international order is necessarily uncontested or even peaceful. That is ahistorical. More often than not, the order internationally was defined by the contest. It was certainly the case for the second half of the 20th century. And I think we are returning to a more historically normal period of history. And with that, either pessimistic or optimistic view, I will shut up.
Thank you, sir.
Well, again, if everyone wants to put their cameras on, I want to just let Bilahari know how much we appreciate your spending this hour with us. If Patrick can put in the chat again the link for the book on this collection of essays from Bilahari, which is really a great read and just gives you such an insight as to think about how we as businesses need to be thinking about geopolitics as we navigate. I think, Bilahari, maybe you want to sum up that we're not in a new order, we're back to the old order. And so with that, give us some parting thoughts and recommendations on what we as the American business community and investors in the region should be thinking about.
There was a short, maybe 20 years or so, historically anomalous period when the overwhelming dominance of American power masked the reality of great power competition as a fundamental fact of international relations. We are now back to a more historically normal period. But I don't think we should either exaggerate the complexities or underplay the complexities of this period. Whether you are countries or whether you have businesses, we have not just successfully navigated the previous periods of great power competition, we prospered under them. And what we did before, we can do again. That's my parting thought, which is an optimistic thought.
Well, I guess I could paraphrase, I guess you paraphrased Spock with live long and prosper, so that we will take away is your,
how does he do it?
I think it's this actually.
Is this all right? That one I can't do.
I can't quite do it. I can't
Okay.
oh, there we go. Ben can do
All right.
it. Thank you,
right.
Ben. Ben's got it. So Bilahari, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank
for
you again
us.
for organizing it.
Our pleasure. And we'll see you. We'll hopefully see you all again at the next AAP session that we do. Good night or good morning, good afternoon, good
Bye-bye.
evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.